Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and today we'll be going over the top 10 quarterback rankings from That Franchise Guy here on YouTube. He has been somebody I've been watching for years, somebody who covers the draft and just the NFL in general. He works for PFF and has been one of the guys I've been really, following for a long time and modeling my own actual career of a draft, person who covers the NFL and draft after. He does a good job. I don't agree with him the majority of the time, but you never should surround yourself or watch things that you totally 100% agree with. You always want to find something that gives you different perspectives. And having watched this video once already, I knew I had to make a video talking about it. And I thought, what good way to get back on the track of posting my regularly scheduled podcast than going through and talking about his list. Because we do have some differences, some very big differences. And I'd like to just go through and talk to him. Go check him out if you haven't already. If you're watching this, you probably already know who he is. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to breeze through the first three because they're not as important to the conversation as the rest of them are. So Cole Kelly, Southeast Louisiana. His reasoning is big, strong arm. Maybe small school could parlay that into a decent backup or like a super raw, developmental, 4-year down the road kind of quarterback. For somebody, I'd rather have Akil Glass just because Kelly doesn't bring the mobility that Glass does. So they're both big, strong-arm guys, so it doesn't really, it's to each their own, really. Number 10 is where it's kind of falling off, which, doesn't really matter. But again, Akil Glass, I think, just has more physical traits. Chase Garbers, Cal, and then at 9, and then at 8, Brock Purdy from Iowa State. Both, point guard kind of quarterbacks with some mobility, NFL backups, if anything, and probably more like a roster bubble kind of third quarterback on the team who bounces around in case of injuries. Have like a Brett Rippon kind of career kind of thing. So again, nothing too crazy. I don't have many varying opinions on these guys than he does. So I'm just going to breeze through them to quickly get to the top 7 because that's where I have the most bones to pick. So 7, Bailey Zapp. I also have Bailey Zapp number 7. We're not differentiating here yet, and I agree with what he says. Bailey Zapp, quarterback out of Western Kentucky. He's going to be a backup for the NFL and a pinch starter for the next 10 years. He's just so smart, so accurate, makes good decisions with the ball. He just doesn't have the best arm, and he has decent pocket awareness, but can falter at times. He doesn't have the upside of any other quarterback, and I think that he'll just be a solid contributor for a team, whether that's going to be in the quarterback room or on the field. If you need like a stopgap starter, he'll be it. He'll most likely be a backup, and like I said, he'll float around the league for at least 10 years. If someone like a Case Keenum or Charlie Whitehorse was his name, I don't know, Clipboard Jesus. I remember that's what his name was, Clipboard Jesus. If they got those kind of guys, Davis Webb, those kind of guys can bounce around the league and still be getting paid to play and throw footballs. I think that Bailey Zapp should be in that class of quarterback. Now we're going to hit on number 6. I'm going to watch it real quick and then come back. We're going to do with some nice funky editing here. I'm going to go quickly watch what he says about number 6 and come back and give my take and opinion on it. But before we get to number 6, he does throw up a QB roadmap here for his draft quarterback rankings. And I'll throw the picture up on the screen right now. And I'm going to actually make my own referendum before we get into the quarterbacks as well. Because, it's a reaction. I'm going to piggyback off what he did and just give my changes and tell you why I made those changes. So it starts off with, all top 6 quarterback roadmap. And you need a starter now. If the answer is yes, he currently has Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter in that area. I definitely agree with Pickett as QB1 in that section. But I would definitely put Sam Howell at QB2, somebody who has experience playing at a higher level school, was ranked, had a lot of weapons already, has experience with that. Maybe his system wasn't the most NFL ready, and I just think that Sam Howell is a processor, and with his accuracy is more ready to start right now than a Desmond Ritter would be. Then if the answer to need a starter now is no, you go down to feeling lucky. If the answer is yes, he has Carson Strong, which we'll get into later, is because of his knee injury. If I'm taking Carson Strong out of that, I think that his knee injury, with the modern medical technology, again, I'll get into this more later, but I think he shouldn't be in the feeling lucky category. I think that that's the place where, Desmond Ritter should be, because Desmond Ritter has all the tools you want. You want to be in love with him, but, his mechanics with his feet and his arms is not where you want it to be, and it affects his accuracy, and you can tell that on his tape. His accuracy is all over the place and sprays it everywhere. But he has good athleticism, good arm strength. He's a winner. He goes out there and he's a leader. If you can totally remodel all of his mechanics so that way he's more accurate, then yeah, you'll have a good starting quarterback in the mold of a Josh Allen or something like that. But you need to be able to rework somebody's entire mechanics that they've played all of quarterbacking with. So I think he's the feeling lucky quarterback. And then with my rankings so if you say feeling lucky, you say no, but I have a good situation to develop a young, talented quarterback. This is the next box. Rankings 1, 2, 3 had Sam Howell, then Matt Corral, then Malik Willis. I'm putting Malik Willis at QB1 there, then Matt Corral at number 2, and then Carson Strong at number 3. Malik Willis has the best tools out of all of them. Matt Corral is the most, I guess, prototypical modern-day NFL quarterback where he can move and play, but he has that, RPO system. Again, we'll get more in depth when he talks about each of these guys. And then Carson Strong, I believe, is just the most physically limited and is probably a more pure pocket passer, so he needs a lot of things to be put around him to succeed. And that's why I'll have my QB3. And yeah, so I'm going to go back. Now we're going to watch number 6. I believe number 6 is Malik Willis, and I am correct. So I will watch his thing real quick about it and then come back and give you basically the rundown of what he says about Malik Willis, his positives and negatives, and why I disagree with him being at QB6 and where I have him in my rankings. Okay, I have reemerged from watching his quick little breakdown of Malik Willis, and just to sum up what he says, positives is, obviously his athletic ability, his arm strength, his ability to hit receivers accurately outside the numbers, everything like that you'll see in the highlights of Malik Willis. And the negatives is where I get hung up on him, because he says basically that the people who have Malik, he's like, oh, you can have Malik Willis number 1. I'm all for that because, traits, this, traits, that. And I have been the biggest proponent of saying, like, he's the one QB in this class that has something elite about his game, which is his athletic ability and his ability to make plays outside the pocket. And he brings up a lot of good, points where it's like, oh, he's erratic. He makes some poor decisions when he's outside the pocket. He isn't able to dissect defenses all that well. He's more of a one-read quarterback. And he brings it up, though. He's like, oh, yeah, it might be Liberty that these issues. And I like to think that it is Liberty. He was, brought into Auburn for a reason. He talks about how he's not able to dissect coverages all that well. If he had time in the pocket and was asked to be more of a read progression kind of quarterback, I'm not saying he should start day one. I mean, he's not a day one starter. You might want to play him day one just that way he can, take his lumps and learn on the job. But at the same time, I wouldn't start him day one. I would if I could draft him into a place that's like maybe has a solid receiving core and a decent offensive line. Nothing elite for him, like in pass catcher wise or defense wise or anything like that. That needs to win now to capitalize on contracts. You can bring him in, bench him for half a season to a season, and then let him go out there after sitting in a QB room for like 6 months in a professional league, and then have the time to sit there and dissect. Because I think a lot of his issues come from hero ball and his wanting to play hero ball. He's running around and trying to make plays happen because he knows that he's the best player on the field. He talks about how he's not going to be able to outrun all these NFL defenses because he's a first read and run kind of guy, and he's not going to be able to, consistently break 65-yard runs against these NFL athletes. But it's like, he is a good enough athlete to break runs against these NFL athletes. So I just want to put that out there first. But secondly, he only has to do that because of how poor the Liberty offense was outside of him. So he had to be the running game and the passing game and everything like that. So I think when given that structure and not forced to play hero ball and given a couple months to sit down and really rework and reshape his understanding of coverages and how to work through progression and stuff like that, and he's going through practices, sitting behind a veteran quarterback like a Carson Wentz, or playing for Indianapolis, or playing for somebody who has maybe an established quarterback that they're looking to move on from, or they're not expecting a lot out of the season, like a Washington, where if they don't do good this season, they can just turn the ball over, be like, we know you're not going to be an all-pro this season, but you know what? Go out there, show us that you improve week to week, and then we can move on with you. He compares him to a more accurate Jalen Hurts. I compare him to a more erratic Kyler Murray. I think that's more of the comp there, with the ability to move around and make plays out of the pocket with the arm strength and the ability to hit accuracy outside the numbers. Maybe his footwork and mechanics can be cleaned up a little bit, but like I said, he's more erratic, I think, mostly because of his hero ball. So yeah, that's my little thing on Malik Willis. He is my QB1. I'm not one of those people who just watch the highlights and be like, oh, QB1 because of all these highlights. No, I go through and I've watched his game tape. I've seen his mistakes. The big one he hit dead on was that he does not check the ball down, which we saw with like Josh Allen when he was a rookie. He did not check the ball down. and he became Josh Checkdown or whatever they wanted to call him, Checkdown Allen, his second season when, he took that giant step forward before he took the other giant step forward. He started taking his checkdowns more, and that really helped improve his accuracy numbers and his passing numbers. So I think that when Malik Willis has time to, he goes to the NFL, he'll play one season, he'll be pretty erratic, but have some highlight reel plays. I do see a Josh Allen-esque career path for him because of the athleticism and the ability to improve. I think he's a smart kid. You saw that at the Senior Bowl. He went there and had NFL coaching for 3 days with better talent around him for 3 days, and he already looked better than everybody else in this class. So I think that with NFL coaching and time to adjust and improve to the NFL after like a season, maybe half a season, he'll be a much better quarterback and will solidify himself as, he probably should have been QB1 in this draft class. All right, moving on to number 5 now. At number 5, he has Matt Corral, my number 2 quarterback on this draft class. Oh, no, I'm sorry, number 3, tied for number 2. It's like 2.5. He basically says like he has a really elite release, strong arm, has the mobility, outside of a few spurts, isn't really that turnover happy. But his issues with him is, again, he was another one-read corner quarterback, and when he was shown in those pro-style plays, he kind of struggled. But again, we're not coming into this draft class expecting day one starters out the group, and I know a lot of people are trying to anoint Matt Corral as like the one quarterback who can come out and be that kind of guy. But like I said, he played in a system that didn't really value pro sets, and it's going to take a little bit of adjusting to. I think he's in a similar class with Malik Willis, where it's going to be good athletic guys who have good arms, who played in systems that are not going to help them when they get to the NFL, and they're going to need a little adjusting period to get to. Matt Corral at least had a decent, like not the best, but like a better than Malik Willis supporting cast around him. So I'm not going to knock Malik Willis as much as I knock Matt Corral for some of the deficiencies with that. And not basically blame it all on Hero Ball because his team sucked, because it didn't. And they were ranked, and they pushed Alabama for a reason. If Malik Willis faced Alabama, it would be a slaughter. He faced Ole Miss, and literally had to rush the ball 22 times because his offensive line could not block, and his running backs could not get traction. I think that Matt Corral will probably need, to like the same thing with Malik Willis, sit on the bench for half a season, then get tossed in, take his lumps and go out there and really try to learn on the fly, learn on the job, just because it's another one of those guys. And I hate the whole one read system criticism. How many more Justin Herberts and one read kind of quarterbacks or system quarterbacks where it's like, oh, this system, maybe they're coming from this system, so they might not succeed because it's one read or it's RPO heavy or it's one read and go kind of thing. We had a Josh Allen, we had a Justin Herbert, we have substantial evidence of quarterbacks who were one-read system quarterbacks in college coming out and being successful. Justin Herbert was almost immediately. So I think you can't really judge them on the system they played in college and seeing if that's going to set them up for failure. They're going to have a few months to learn a system that they're going to be in, and they're all smart athletes. You know that because they're playing this level of football. And if they're not, then the teams would have figured that out in the draft process. So if you guys are actually going to get drafted in the first round, these teams think they will be able to pick up a system pretty easily. So I don't expect anybody drafted in the first round to not pass that test. And I'm fully expecting Matt Corral to go in the first round. And even if that's the case, run heavy RPO game with him. Draft him to somewhere like New Orleans where you can, Kamara's gone now, but for now, you can play him somewhere where you have a good run game, and he just has to make those one reads or let the running back take it kind of thing, and let him learn in practice until he gets better at the pro stuff, and just let him run those simple RPO one read kind of plays in the meantime, if you're really that desperate for a quarterback. So yeah, Matt Corral is my quarterback, 2.5, really. And I don't really agree a lot with what he says here. Again, his good release, I agree with that. His negatives, I agree with, but I don't think they're as detrimental as he puts them here. I think he's underselling what these NFL coaching staffs can and have done in the past. Moving on to number 4. Number 4, he has Sam Howell, and now we've finally gotten to somewhere where we're like in a middle ground. Sam Howell is my number 4 quarterback, also round 2 grade. The other two guys were round 1s for me. They were round 2s for him. He basically just says pros of Sam Howell is, he's already proven he can do it with elite talent around him, and that it kind of sucks that he lost all that elite talent and they totally overhauled the offense, and now it reflected where he had to basically make everything happen by himself. He had to, succeed as a runner, which was a big leap for me when I watched the tape, the second in 2021 said 2020 was that I didn't think he was that athletic or that he was able to make that many plays out of structure, but he showed he could. I still have a little questions about his deep accuracy. I know he's decently accurate in the inside and the short game, and I don't think he's the greatest athlete. He tries saying that he's much closer to Malik Willis than most people think. I don't think it's that close. I think Malik Willis is genuinely going to be like a low 4.4, high 4.3 kind of runner, whereas Sam Howell, I'll agree with him, like a 4.58. I think Malik Willis is just deceptively. You're not gonna. He's gonna train. He's gonna come out. He's gonna run a great time. And people are gonna look too much into it. But I said it first here, so fight me. He says that Sam Howell's arm is close to Malik Willis, which is, I don't know where he got that from. Malik Willis has the best arm strength in this draft class. He can make any throw from any platform. It's one of his detriments because he knows he can make every throw, and that's what the issue is, where Sam Howell knows his limitations. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He can make every NFL throw, but he's not going to trick himself into thinking, I can throw across my body while falling over and try to get it to the opposite hash, where Malik Willis will think that. But Malik Willis does have that ability to do something like that. It's just, you shouldn't. Sam Howell is going to be more of that point guard, high level. Like, how we talked about Chase Garbers and Brock Purdy. They're going to be more of the point guard guys who have that physical limitation, where Sam Howell is more physically gifted than those guys, but he's going to be more of a cerebral Baker Mayfield. He comps on Mitch Trubisky. I think he's more of a Baker Mayfield. Decent, he's surprisingly athletic for his size. Good accuracy in the short to intermediate, can take those play action shots, but has shown that if without a good supporting cast and without people who can actually get open right away, he sometimes will struggle to make plays outside of structure, despite showing off he has more athleticism than he did in the 2020 tape. So I still think he has room to grow there, but he definitely needs to be in a situation where they have elite talent, maybe an elite running game to help support him and bolster him so he can be the best quarterback he can be. So he's more dependent on the system and the players around him than like say Malik Willis, who, as long as he doesn't have a Liberty level of offense around him, he should be more competent, especially because of his athletic gifts. On to number 3. So number 3 for him is Desmond Ritter, and we're totally on a level here together, where I have him as number 5, he has him number 3. And he thinks he can be more of a play now guy. I think Desmond Ritter could probably play now. He wouldn't do as well as you'd want. Again, it'd be more like 2018 Josh Allen kind of play. I'm sorry if I keep comping him to that. That's just the most accurate depiction for him, specifically because of how big and how athletic he is for that size. Also because, I'm a Bills fan, I got to see that firsthand. He's going to go out there and he will struggle because he's not accurate, and it's because mechanics are everywhere. I think he doesn't value the mechanics. Like his biggest knock for him is that he's inaccurate, right? And I agree, that's his biggest weakness. So I knock him on accuracy, but I also knock him on mechanics because his mechanics are horrible. They're horrific. That's a little harsh, but you know what I mean. They're not good, and I think that his accuracy is tied to his mechanics, and I don't think he can improve the accuracy without improving his mechanics, and that's more of a long-term process than it would be for like Malik Willis to learn coverages. So I think that Desmond Ritter, I knock him a little harder than he does, despite us having the same criticisms, because I think that the things he needs to fix are more detrimental than other guys. And even though I think he probably could start day one, I think any of these guys come in and be a day one starter and probably perform half decently. They won't be terrible. I don't think Desmond Ritter is any more of a first day starter than any of these other guys. So I think he's actually one of the guys who needs to take time to work with a QB coach, work with an offensive coordinator, and get that stuff fixed, and work with a Carson Palmer, get that stuff worked out. I'm sorry, Jordan Palmer, before he can come in and be a high-level starter. So I think that's just where we differ on that. On to number 2. So our number 2s are actually the same with Kenny Pickett. And his big knocks on him is the 1-year production, 1-year elite production, despite being the most accurate quarterback at all levels, definitely in my opinion, and in his for this draft class. He really puts a lot of stock in that small hand size. The fact that he's two-gloving it at the college level, and that at the Mobile practice when it was raining, he had a short arm in. But I mean, all the quarterbacks had the short arm at the Mobile practice. And despite the ball getting bigger at the NFL level, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue, especially if he wears 2 gloves. He will have the smallest hand size of any quarterback in the league, but at the same time, there's been no, like, as long as he doesn't go to, like, Pittsburgh, despite, even though I know he's been playing in Pittsburgh, it is going to be a bigger ball regardless of what I just decided about that, but, like, a frozen bigger ball is going to be harder. And the move to more teams having domes now, and the fact that mostly just southern nice weather teams are the ones looking for quarterbacks right now, I think he has an above average chance to land as either a dome team or as a, nice weather team, as opposed to like a cold weather team or a terrible weather team like a Seattle or a Pittsburgh. I think that he can come in. He's the definitive number one day one starter guy for everybody else in this draft class. He's the guy who I think can start day one and succeed the most on day one. He has a decent arm and he's a decent athlete. Nothing too crazy there. So his ceiling is kind of low, but he's definitely the best starter of the group. He can come in and immediately make your offense better. I think Carolina is the best fit for him. And if he went to Carolina, nice weather. Not going to have too much issue down there with weather-wise, except for maybe rain. But at the same time, everywhere can rain, so it's like it doesn't really matter where you put them. If your worry is rain, I don't think the hand size is going to impact him that much. If anything, you hand the ball off Chris McCaffrey, and that's basically his main criticism. So if you subscribe to that thought, then you agree with him. If you don't, then you disagree with him. And there's not much you can talk about it. Just it'll be a testament to see it because, again, there has to be a limit. I think I equate it to arm strength where hand size is that the bigger the hand, it doesn't really matter. So, arm strength is, I say the most important trait is arm strength for the NFL quarterback because there's a threshold. If you're below the threshold of arm strength, you're not going to make it in the NFL quarterback. If you are above the threshold, you'll get a couple more brownie points if you can, have the strongest arm. But as long as you're above that threshold, you'll probably be fine when it comes to being an NFL quarterback. Same thing with hand size. There's a threshold where a certain level of hand size will work, but we don't know what that threshold is yet because we've seen guys with smaller hands succeed. We've seen guys with gigantic hands fail. Paxton Lynch. So I think that he could come in, and if he's at least as long as he's above that threshold and can prove people wrong, then I don't think much of his criticisms stand. He does say he's a little uncreative outside the pocket. I agree, kind of, but at the same time, I think that's, again, a thing that can be improved with, better weapons around him and an NFL coach and just getting him more used to making plays outside the pocket at the NFL level. Moving on to number one, he has Carson Strong. Says he has the best, tape on film, best tape grade. Carson Strong's my number 6 quarterback. I have a round 3 grade on him. He says that he has he says that he's the only one who has an elite trait with his pocket presence, being able to sense rushers from behind him. He's accurate. He has a good arm, and that he can move around the pocket good enough. But he's not too worried about he's going to be a pocket passer. I don't think he's that creative when I'm moving outside the pocket. Me and him disagree on that. I think his accuracy is good, but there are definitely some plays that can get away from him. I think he's a guy who suffers from having too strong of an arm, where he will bullet a pass in when he should have just put a little bit of touch on it. I think that's something he has to work on. And he's just not an athlete. He's not like God. He's going to be a Matt Stafford, he's probably Matt Stafford-esque with how little of an athlete is, probably a little less than that, with a strong arm. And his biggest issue is his knee surgery, which I don't put that much stock into, just, the progress of modern-day medicine. And I just think that he's got a ceiling that's medium, because he doesn't have that athleticism, but a lot of, the problem with athletic quarterbacks is eventually when age hits you, and you need to be able to work from the pocket. He can work from a pocket. And I just don't think he brings a lot that, say, if Malik Willis can learn to play from the pocket, if Desmond Ritter can learn to play with the pocket to be accurate, if Kenny Pickett can silence doubters about his hand size, I don't think Carson Strong really brings that much greater of a pocket presence or as a pocket passer quarterback that those guys could once they learn and develop that kind of system in their game, will also be able to bring athleticism to it in the beginning of their career. So they can bring a whole different dimension, and once they start slowing down with their athleticism because of age, if that happens, but most likely when it does happen, and they have to transition to a pocket passer quarterback, I don't think Carson Strong has that much on them when it comes to that, especially later in the career, except he doesn't bring that athletic punch at the beginning of his career. So I have him lower down. I can see why a team like Pittsburgh would want to buy into him. Again, I don't care about the knee injury that much. He seems kind of terrified about it, but you know what? We'll see what happens. And that's the last quarterback he has on his top 10 list. That's my last one I'm going to be reacting to. Overall, I don't agree with his list. Like you can see, we had Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett in the same spots, but everyone else is basically shuffled around. The list is almost inverted. I have Malik Willis at 1 and Matt Corral at 2, whereas he had Malik Willis at 6 and Matt Corral at 5. And, like I said, 6 for, it was basically an inverted list. And I just wanted to go out there, and since he has a totally different mindset to me, totally different list than me, I wanted to go out and give my opinions and see why we disagree and where his mindset is opposed to my mindset. I have a whole different video I'm going to make about how I don't think this QB draft class is actually as bad as people are saying it's going to be. People are saying it's one of the worst ever, and that's awful. He said it's one of the worst he's had since he's been doing this. I don't think it's that doom and gloom. Like, you can look back to 2013, and you can find a draft class that's already worse. Retroactively, you can go back and find some worse draft classes, I bet. And I probably will do that, but yeah, I have a video coming out. It's going to be talking about why I don't think this draft class is that bad. Anyway, that is my thoughts on this QB draft class. That is my reaction to that franchise guy's top 10 quarterbacks. Check out the Dynasty Index. Check out QPro888's channel. We just did a mock draft review on it with a mock draft I made. Now the Super Bowl's over, and this should be out soon after recording this. It is 2:12 a.m. I have to go to bed. I have work in 3 hours, so I will catch you guys later.